Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Voices of Food Future podcast, episode 3. And today we are having a conversation on seeds. If you remember, on the first and second episode, we talked about the system. We talked about how food leaves the markets, how food leaves our farms and gets to the markets, and finally to the consumers' tables. Now, today we are going to go back a little bit further and look at how does this food get to the farms when you plant it? What is the whole economy around seeds? And we will have that conversation with none other than Susan Owiti, who's here with us today. And I'm just going to give her a moment to introduce herself, and then we're going to kickstart the episode.
Oh, thank you very much. My name is Susan Owiti. I come from a movement called Kenyan Peasants League. It's a movement of smallholder food producers. I'm also a member of Via Campesina. Via Campesina is a global movement of peasant farmers. KPL, we are located in 5 counties in Nairobi. And I'm also a smallholder food producer, meaning I produce my own food. I'm also an activist and a peasant feminist, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Susan. I think I'd like to start with the fact the name peasant farmer is a very interesting term, because normally you just go with farmer. So what does it mean when you're a peasant farmer?
It means that you'll ideally realize that people focus more on the large-scale farmers, and they forgot the smallholder food producer who majorly produce 70% of the food that we eat. So that is why we thought of coming up with the Kenyan Peasants League as a way of addressing the issues affecting the smallholder food producers and also food producers like myself. Because if you look into even globally, it is the smallholder producers that are doing a lot, but again we are not recognized in terms of the work we do when it comes to food production. So we felt also in Kenya, if we call ourselves peasants, because we are smallholder, we produce from the family, from the household to the community. So that is why we are addressing ourselves as peasants, because we are peasant farmers. Sisi ni wale wakulima wadogo.
Okay, wakulima wadogo.
Yes.
All right. We are having a conversation on seeds, and if we just ask ourselves why we opted to go for seeds, is because we know that food cannot be grown without first planting it. And that is, seeds are the heart of food sovereignty. Now, when it comes to the process of obtaining seeds for peasant farmers, or for small scale farmers rather, how is that process for farmers, since you are also one of the small scale farmers and you said that they feed 70% of the country? What is the process for a peasant farmer, or rather for a small scale farmer as well, to get access to not just seeds but quality seeds?
Maybe one I can say, one of the major things is for the farmer to own their own seeds.
Okay.
Because ideally we have a myth that is saying that indigenous seeds are disappearing, but it is a myth. Ideally they are there, because as a smallholder food producer, I own my own seeds and I bank them. So one of the processes we say is farmers taking control by, number one, producing their own seeds in terms of one, multiplying in the seed multiplication spaces, because that is one of the issues we are handling within our space. We have what is called agroecology schools. So in the schools, what we do is we train farmers on how to multiply their own seeds, meaning that now, if I have my space in the farm, I can allocate a small space whereby I can multiply my seeds. So meaning that I need to have the ownership of that seeds. And then after multiplying, then it is a harvesting season, because ideally we know some of the indigenous seeds like maize, when you're harvesting maize, you're also harvesting seeds at the same time. And then we have indigenous vegetables like managu and saga and the other ones. So also those ones, the indigenous ones, when you plant, at the same time you are planting the seeds. So meaning you are also harvesting your own seeds. So in the process, there's a process whereby we also take farmers on how to harvest, and then the way you are going to sort them, and then to dry them. And then now after all that process, now we have what is called seed banks. So these seed banks is a way of now ensuring that now we are keeping the seeds, to ensure that now we don't lose we don't have the loss of the indigenous seeds. Like now, it has been something that has been said that the indigenous seeds are disappearing. So for us to ensure that now we are curbing the situation, we ensure that each and every farmer within our space must have that seed bank to ensure that now we have our own indigenous seeds.
So it is a myth that indigenous seeds are disappearing.
Yes, it is a myth.
So that means since you're running agroecology schools, I'd like to understand, since, for example, let's say for maize, let's take maize, for instance. So you've harvested it and you've harvested the seeds as well.
Yes.
And now in the next season when you're planting, that means ideally they're supposed to keep on replenishing and multiplying every time.
Yes.
But do you do this only for the farmers in your spaces, or do you also make it public for other people to know this information?
We are also doing it with the community, because the idea of us starting the AE schools was now to reach the community, because now we are having the issue of the multinational companies coming in and now giving people the industrial seeds, which again we know is also contributing to climate change. So the main aim of starting the school was to ensure that now we are reaching many farmers and bringing them in the school to train them on how to take the whole process of now multiplying seeds, processing and everything, and also keeping their own seeds.
So the main threat that you have is the industrial seeds which are being pushed by the multinational companies?
Yes.
Okay. So let's now leave, once the seeds have been planted and they've grown and now they've become crops. Informal markets. When it comes to, if I'm a buyer, and like I said, we're building the conversation from the previous episode we had, and we had a farmer who was saying food loses almost 30% of its value when it leaves the farm to the market. And that's because by the time, if I come to your farm and buy, for example, say cabbage, you're going to sell it to me, let's say at maybe 100 bob per kilo. By the time I go to, say, for example, Wakulima Market bus station, I'll be sold at 200 per kilo. So when it comes to informal markets, since you are the one who's dealing with the farmers who are in these spaces, in the rural areas, do informal markets stand a chance of influencing the economy of food?
Okay, maybe one thing I can say is that the reason was to why, let me start by saying, he was saying that it is losing its value. It's because also of the issue of the middlemen.
Okay.
Because you realize, you realize
Yeah.
that the farmers are the ones who are doing the major work. But again, we have the middlemen who are coming to exploit farmers in the farms by now buying the produce at a cheaper price. But when it reaches the market now, they're the ones who are gaining in terms of profit. So I think we looked into it, being that within the space also we are advocating for the farmers' right when it comes to food, because our core activity is food production. So we are currently on a journey of developing what is called food cooperative.
Okay.
So food cooperative is a way to ensure that now the farmer we link the farmer directly to the consumer, because now interfering with the middlemen, being that once the food leaves the farm, it goes direct to the consumer. So majorly they will realize that now the farmer will not face the losses in terms of now production and everything and the process they use within the farms. It means that now the farmer will now also be getting the profit, and also the consumer will be getting the right food, because again, it might come from the farm, but maybe in between there might be some let me say issues coming out. So by the time it is going to the market, maybe it is not maybe what came from the farm. And then again realize that now the consumer will be having something which is fresh and clean from the farm. And then now this consumer also will be knowing the farmer directly, because now he'll be knowing, for example, it is Susan who is planting indigenous manago. So and every time I want it, I'll contact Susan directly, you see, and get my produce without now having the interference of the middlemen. So I think currently we are still having the challenge when it comes to the local markets around us, because let me bring an example of Kangemi,
Yes,
where
please.
I come from. So currently, if you go to Kangemi today, you will see a lot of produce rotting.
On the road, yeah.
You see? Because now the idea is that they are saying we are food insecure, but in real sense, there is a lot of food. It is there. The problem is now farmers are not getting, they are not being given right to access to market directly. So it becomes really hard. That is why sometimes even you see in the news whereby farmers are saying, I have maybe a lot of maize which are rotting, because now the government is not addressing the issue of farmers having linkage to the direct, linkage to market directly. And then we have seen the scenario whereby you will realize the government going to buy maize in Uganda, and we have our farmers here in Kenya who are producing maize. So basically, what does that mean? It means that now they are trying to maybe say that our farmers cannot produce enough. But in real sense, the farmers are producing enough. Look at now the situation as a farmer. Recently, I was in my rural place weeding my farms and other farmers. And ideally, I can tell you 2 months from now, farmers are going to harvest in bulk. That one is there because the rains have been there, farmers planted on time, and now people are focusing again on food. So you realize they are going to be bulky of production. But again, what is the now government putting in place to ensure that now farmers, once the produce come from the farms, they will have access to the market without maybe now farmers going at the losses again and saying that we did not have enough.
So if I understand you correctly, number one, Kenya is not food insecure.
Yes.
There is just no established link between the consumer and the farmer directly.
Producer,
I think that's something that has been coming up consistently because you're not the first person who's come here and said farmers are producing enough food to feed the whole country. It is just now, like you've given an example, and it's not the only place where you find food is left on the road sometimes because it's spoiled. There is no specific platform rather for where someone can come and just, if, for example, like you're saying, I get to Susan, I buy food from her. So when it comes to the food cooperatives, because I'm sure you incorporate the local markets, have you already established it, and how is it going to work?
Okay, currently what we established 3 of our clusters. One of them is in Kangemi, being it's an urban setup, and then we have 2 in 2 of our clusters in Migori. And what I can say, because other clusters have not yet started, that it is something coming, because you realize that earlier we had women within our space who are producing, but now they were just taking the produce to the market just maybe to see if they can sell. But now with the issue of food co-op, it is a surety that I'm going to sell my produce, because what we did research in terms of now maybe having data of the consumers. How many consumers? Maybe, for example, we have 10 consumers who consume vegetables, and then we have consumers who are interested in this. So once you have that data in place, it becomes easier for you to know when I have a specific produce, then I know we have 10 consumers who will ideally get it. So it is not an issue of waiting for it to be bought, but it's an issue of now the orders are there already. So meaning this farmer will not have a stress whereby now my produce I'm just going to see if I will sell and get something, but now it is an assurity of that my produce will get market. So
you're saying people would harvest, go to the market, na wanaenda kubahatisha.
Yes.
So I may get someone to buy my food, I may not.
Yes.
And if I don't, I go back with my food.
Exactly.
So what happens if I go back with my food and I have a family of 5 people and we already have enough for our consumption?
It means it will go to waste.
Just like that.
Imagine like if it is indigenous vegetables, like myself, I farm mostly indigenous vegetables. Meaning if I remove them from the farm, I expect that by the end of the day I sell them. Zikilala kesho, a customer will come and say, hizi zimelala, I cannot buy them. You see? So meaning by the end of 2 days, zitakuwa zina oza. So meaning they will lack market. But if I harvest them, and maybe I know there are 5 consumers who want them, it means zikitoka kwa shamba na zinaenda kuuzwa kwa huyo consumers, ideally I know by the end of the day maybe I have my 300 shillings or my 500 shillings in the pot, depending with the order I got from the consumers.
I like it that you mentioned women, and I remember in the introduction you said you're agri-feminist.
Yes.
So here's a conversation we touched on just a bit in the previous episode, and I'd like now to get a opinion from you. In Kenya, 70% of food production in the farms is done by women.
Yeah.
But less than 2% of women own land in Kenya. What do you think about that, and how does it affect the ecosystem of food in our country?
I think I did an interview with Eunice earlier, and being that I focus much on that, I think one of the case study that came out was the issue of culture. The reason as why I'm talking about it, to realize that we have cultures that are oppressing women. I'm not saying cultures are bad, but we have oppressive ones. So one of the issues that came out from ownership. That study was women access to land, not even ownership, access. Access
to land is a problem.
It's a problem.
Okay.
So if I cannot access, it means I cannot produce.
Yeah.
And that study also shows that because of women cannot access, it ends up now they're getting themselves into debts, whereby now they go to borrow to maybe lease a land to farm.
Yeah.
And then maybe the microcredit institutions again, they target illiterate women who did not go to school, meaning these women will not even read the documents in the first place. So they end up signing things they're not aware of. So to me, one of the issue was that, and then another issue was men taking control, because women produce, but men take control. So you realize that once the harvests are there, it is now the men who are in charge of taking the produce to the market and then pocketing everything.
So the woman is left at the mercy of the man.
So the woman is left at the mercy of the man.
Okay.
Last year we had a case of a woman. This woman harvested. This woman is rearing chicken. So one day she went and came back and found the husband sold everything. Everything. So when she questioned the husband
the husband went with it to drink.
Yote. This is a case I was handling last year.
Okay.
Sasa huyu mwanaume alichapa huyu mwanamke. In fact, alimpiga karibu amuue. So
when the woman asked why.
Yeah. The woman asked because she had harvested like 5 sacks of maize and then she had some chickens. So when she came, the husband had sold everything. Hakuna hata ya kukula, kila kitu. So she became mad and then she started asking, why did you do it? And then the husband alimpiga. So when alimpiga, she had to run, akarudi kwao. So we were called because we also handle such cases. So when we follow up on the case, we were told she's badly beaten, she cannot even stand everything. And then it happens the husband came again. Sasa alikuja kudemand bibi yake arudi after kumchapa. And then I told them akikuja, you just call. In fact, I recorded that. And then I asked him, kwa nini ulimpiga? And then it was like, mila inasema bibi akiolewa lazima achapwe. Akileta ujinga. Nikamwambia, where was it said? Nikamwambia, kwa nini uliuza kila kitu na ni mama lima? Akasema, mimi ndio bwana, Biblia inasema I'm the head. Hakuna Kenya anaweza afanya. And then I told her, umejua sheria inasema ukichapa bibi unaweza fungwa. And then she started arguing. And then I told him, sasa unaongea nitapigia OCS wa hiyo area kukujie. So the family intervened, wakasema, we don't want him arrested. All we want is for him to pay for the hospital bills, and then we are going to settle the issue as a family.
Internally.
So they told me one thing we want to push is for the man. Afanye nini? Alipe bili ya hospitali because she was brutally beaten. So nilimwambia, I've given you until the end of today. Kama hujalipe bill, and then we are coming for you. So the man settled everything, and then we told her in as much as you are intervening as a family. But if issue ikifanyika tena, we'll have to take legal action. And I was like, sitaimpiga or blind. Sikujua kumbe sheria inasema wanawake wanafaa waheshimiwe, things like that. So that is just one of the example of the cases that are happening in terms of now women producing and men now taking control. You see.
So it doesn't stop at you producing. It can still be taken away from you if you're a woman.
Yes.
Even after you've done all the work from planting, preparing the farm to even harvesting.
Yes.
How many cases of this do we have, given from the position where you sit as an organization? I just want you to give us like an overview of the number of times this happens, so that we get the importance of highlighting such instances, because it is not rarely that, because you see now this is an issue that brings in abuse, it brings in misusing of resources as well, but people just assume it's farming, it's inikulima tu na it doesn't touch on this other. So how many times do you get cases of such happening? How many times are they brought to you?
We get a lot, especially the widows. We receive a lot of cases. So people assume it is farming, but they are facing a lot of violence. Because one, your land is taken away from you. Your produce, sometimes if you are married, your produce is taken away from you by your husband, who is again determining the prices of the produce how the produce are going to be sold, but by the end of the day you will not even see 1 shilling from him. So we receive a lot of them. Like we started following up on the cases from 2018. And I think it was in one of our meetings we had in Migori that these issues started emerging, whereby now, and these ones were now targeting the widows who are maybe chased from the land because of wife inheritance. And then now, since they are chased, they cannot farm and they have children. And then again, widows who are bearing girls only. Now they feel that they don't have the right to own the husband's land. So they need to be chased away. They believe that is a male. If she cannot produce a male, then she does not have a right to any property of the husband. So we felt that it was a bit discriminating to women peasants, and we started doing a follow-up. So I think that year we did a documentation of like, let me say around 20 cases from different areas where we are located. And then we've been doing cases, and I think in 2022, it motivated us to build a rescue center in Migori to house these women, because imagine umefukuzwa na watoto kwa shamba yako, hauna mahali pa kuenda, no one to help you, you are just there. And then again, community, the way people will now see you, no one will stand for you. Chief kama ni mwanaume pia atakurudia.
He will not support you.
Yeah, he will say, huyu ni mwanaume kama mimi, so I'll have to
go back
the man, you see. So ilikuwa very sad for the women. So we feel if we have that space, wanaweza kaa hapo tukiona venye tunawasaidia na ma cases, and then again ensuring they get their land back, because if they don't have a land, they cannot produce, and if you cannot produce, you cannot sell.
Let us just veer, of course, a bit. This has motivated me to ask you a question. When you started Kenya Peasants League, did you think you'd end up building rescue centers?
Okay, we never, because we were ideally focusing on to talk about food sovereignty, ownership, control. That was our main focus. But now when the issue started coming out, we felt we cannot just focus on producing and not addressing the issues coming out again. So we build and then we address the issues at the same time, you see, to ensure that now the victims also get the justice they need. Because mtu hawezi kuja chukue shamba yangu ama mavuno yangu and then we just fold our hands and we are saying we are talking about food sovereignty. It means we are not advocating for what we believe in. So we need to address and we need to build at the same time.
All right. Let's talk about the policies that are in place in Kenya currently. When laws are being passed or when these policies are being made, they're usually made in the aspect of large-scale commercial farming. Rarely do we find laws or policies that actually support or uplift the local farmer. So how do you go around now in terms of also maneuvering in the policy setup where the people who go to lobby, for example, for laws to be made are people who own big farms or people who have acres of land. Does it beat the small scale farmer, or does it affect them, the laws that are passed and made law in our country?
It does, because
and for example, maybe you could give us some of those laws that don't support small scale farmers.
It does. Let me start with our case of the GMO that is in court. We took the government to the court in regards to the GMO seeds, which now at least finally tuliskuma hadi kesi yetu inasikika, because we don't need the GMOs. We already have our own seeds.
Yeah.
Again, ukiangalia tuko na Mungu bill. It is touching on the smallholder farmers in Machakos, because areas ni wakulima huko wanapanda dengu. So if you look into it keenly, it talks about issue ya land iko hapo ndani, registration, wanataka kujua kuna shamba inatoshana aje. It talks about you having satisfied seed. Tangu lini mbegu yako mtu akuja satisfied? You see? So meaning it is going to interfere with the way the farmers there are producing. We have a cluster there.
Yeah.
You see? Tuko na rice iko. Si tuko na ya mchele. Tuko na ya njugu. There are many. So who is behind all this bill? This is za chakula. What is the issue behind it? You see? So it is not even targeting the large. It is targeting the smallholder food producers. Because ule mamangu ako nyumbani mwenye ako na ng'ombe anajitengenezea manyiwa yake, anajiwekea mbegu yake. Sasa nyumeleta sheria yenye inasema ati akitaka kutumia manyiwa lazima ikuje ikaguliwe, na yeye mwenyewe anajua kuitengeneza. Akitaka kupanda mbegu yake lazima ikuje ikaguliwe, na hiyo mbegu yake ni ya kienyeji. What is behind it? It means they want to control how the smallholders are producing. They want to control the food system. And then
so that goes to actually look at the fact that, like when you started, you saying 70% of food production in Kenya is done by the smallholder farmers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So meaning wakienda kutarget ule mamangu ako nyumbani. Ni nani wanapatia power? They are giving the power to the multinational industries to come in with the seeds, because already they are there. They are everywhere. Selling the seeds, deceiving the farmers, because they don't only come with the seeds, they come with a lot of things behind the seeds. Wanakuja wanaambia wakulima, wacha tuwapatie solar on loan, tuwapatie television on loan, tuwapatie kapera ya kuandika mahindi on loan. Endo angalio solar, a solar that goes for 10,000. Unapata mkulima anakatwa analipa 25,000, meaning hiyo interest ya 15,000 inaenda kwa hiyo kampuni. I'm telling you what I saw. I'm not talking about nilisikia. This is what I saw. Yeah. You see? So it means it is a way of oppressing the smallholder food producers and taking control of how they are supposed to produce na vile inafaa. And that is why we are saying no, we don't need that, because the constitution is clear. Siko. Article 310 talks about right to protect indigenous and plant varieties. She talks about that. But now they are contradicting hizi sheria mingi wanaleta za chakula. Why do we have all these laws? Nilisikia ni around 19. We don't need them. To me, I say we don't even need one of them. It is not a matter of us looking into them. We don't want them. So azitoe. All along, farmers have been producing without easy laws, and they have been feeding. Even globally, it is the smallholder food producers that are feeding the world. You see? So we don't need laws to tell us how we are supposed to produce our food. Na mnatuletea masheria mingi zenye tusaidie. Those ones we don't need.
Do they do public participation for these laws?
They don't. Have you ever seen a government call for public participation? Let me give you an example. This is public participation ya technical working group on gender-based violence and femicide. And to my surprise, it is like it was for a fewer people. It is public, but it's for fewer people. Meaning that when they call this public participation, they're expecting maybe people who are trained to come and say something there, but they don't want people to hear what is happening, all the issues that are coming out. So meaning the laws are there, but no one looks into them. Last year we were doing public participation on the climate policies in KPL, and we realized even the county, the people who work in the counties are not even aware of these policies. Now they are county government. Yes, and they are there. So we took our time and we were training them about the policies. Already zenye zilikuwa policies ya Nairobi by then ilikuwa bill, imekuja sahi ni policy climate. You see? But now if you see whatever is in there, like for Nairobi, it is not even coming to address the issue of agroecology, because carbon credit ndio imejaa huko ndani. So again, this one is coming to affect the smallholder food producer, because the moment nimeambiwa nikapande miti kwa ile shamba yangu ndogo, am I going to produce food?
No. You have to choose between trees or food.
Exactly.
Okay.
So to me, these policies are not helping at all. What they are doing now, they are bringing more damage to the smallholder food producers who are producing and doing a lot of work to ensure that now we are getting food.
Yeah.
Juu kama tukuli tutaishi. Hata serikali wenyewe kama wakuli wataishi. They cannot. So meaning farmers should be. And again, what we are saying, even if the laws are being put in place, they should include the voices of the smallholder food producers in those spaces, because we are the ones who know the issues that are coming out. Sisi tunajua zile challenges ziko. Sasa nikienda kwa shamba yangu, mtajua hii shamba inafaa ipaliliwe. Hizi mboga zangu zimeshikwa na dudu. So I need to develop, because we don't use the pesticides. We develop our own organic ones. So if we can be given a chance, we can also be advising on maybe, can you now promote the organic pesticide that the farmers are developing? Ingie kwa soko so that other farmers can adapt to it. Can you now promote the organic manure that the farmers are making to ensure they are producing clean and sufficient food, instead of now mnatuwekea zile pesticide na herbicides zenye zilibaniwa UK zimekuja kudampiwa Kenya. Sisi wakulima tuzitumie, tunakuja kuambiwa ati fertilizer bei yake ni rahisi lakini ilidampiwa Kenya. And farmers are not aware of it. So it's high time also they look into aspect of whereby now including the smallholder food producers in the table, and also trying to get advice, and also maybe how we want, because there was a meeting I went to. They were talking about I think there is a Muranga agroecology document and others. So I was asking them in that meeting, we are talking, do you know agroecology? Do you really understand what agroecology is? Because what I am seeing, when we talk about fertilizers, pesticide, and then you are bringing agroecology in the same sentence, we are contradicting ourselves. It means that now tunajaribu ku paint a picture that is not there. So if we want to talk about agroecology, let us now adapt to the organic manure, organic pesticide. Let us promote the indigenous seeds and ensure that now even the government can promote community seed banks where farmers can now have enough seeds. Because if we don't have enough seeds, then we cannot produce. People are assuming that mbegu za kienyeji zimepotea. They are there. Me, I have my own seeds. Within KPL, farmers have their own seeds. Na wamekuwa kipanda hizi mbegu. So this is a myth. So this issue needs to be addressed. Na tuache kupromote multinationals.
So we've talked about how in your farms as smallholder farmers you use organic pesticides, organic fertilizers. How is it easier? Of course, I know it's better for the farms than the fertilizers that are being imported or the manufactured ones. But in the process of making organic pesticide, for example, how do you make organic pesticide?
We develop with the medicinal plants.
Okay.
We have different medicinal plants, but realize that again, people are not looking into them. So we have different medicinal plants, and we have farmers with those knowledge. We call them professors of the farms. We have professors in the universities, but we also have professors. So we have elderly farmers who have a lot of local knowledge when it comes to developing of the organic manure. So realize that using the medicinal plants that maybe people think don't exist. Some of us, we grew taking them. Like when we were growing up, I remember my mother every month used to make some of them mix, and then we could be lying and we could be told, now you need to take 1 cup. It is like a dose. You don't get sick every month.
Yeah.
So these medicinal plants, there is a way they are mixed. And then they develop the organic pesticide, which can be used in the farm to spray in the vegetables when they get attacked with the diseases. And then we have the organic manure, which also our farmers are developing. Mm-hmm. So these ones also, you realize we have the ones for planting. They are maybe developed from the animal waste, but we also have the ones we develop from the plants again. Mm-hmm. And then we have the ones we develop, they are liquid manure, which you can use in the top dressing. But again, imagine if now this process are supported. It means now we can produce clean and sufficient foods without any chemical. And then people will be eating very clean food. But how much is invested to ensure that now farmers are being maybe given opportunity to produce these ones in bulk to support larger community? So if also our governments could be focusing on that, I think we'll be addressing the issue of the food system that we are talking about. The issue is that we have put our minds on the industrial seeds, and we believe that now the farmers were told, because sometimes when we mobilize farmers to join the agroecology school, the farmers will tell you that we were told that the reason as to why these seeds, even if we have shorter rains, I'll still harvest. Yeah. But again, we did a case study with the same farmers. And the funny thing with the industrial seeds, you cannot maybe store it for 1 year. The 8th year, you will find the whole sack rotten. So what are you consuming? That is a question you need to ask yourself.
So without planting it, if you store it without planting it,
yes, like bad. Now maize, sometimes farmers harvest in bulky and then they store some of the maize.
Granaries,
So compared to the indigenous one, my indigenous maybe maize I can store up to 3 years. Just eating slowly. It means that it
and is... And you can plant it every season.
And I can plant it. And at the same time, I can store it. Yeah. So it means that shows that the indigenous seeds still have power and they don't get spoiled. Unlike the industrial seed, which again, you have said, you have mentioned, you cannot replant.
So you've said they last for like 8 months and then they start going bad.
Yes.
And that was a case study you did.
We did. There was a cluster we were forming in Siaya. I come from Siaya, from my own home. And when I first went to visit the farmers in 2019, I was talking to them about indigenous seeds. And they were telling me, the indigenous seeds don't exist. They disappeared. And I told them they are there. Because, in our area, we have a lot of multinational companies there.
So that means this information of indigenous seeds disappearing has already disseminated even to the rural areas, to the small-scale farmers.
Yes.
Okay.
So what I told them, we have indigenous seeds. If I give you, you can go and plant your own seeds, and then you see. And then they themselves, they said they're going to do that research. So they plant the industrial and they plant the indigenous seeds. Yeah. And they're the ones who told us that you cannot even store the seeds up to 8 months. They rot. So meaning you cannot store them. Yeah. They are meant to be planted, and then they are meant to be eaten immediately. They don't need to take long, unlike the indigenous one. So the farmers themselves did their own research, and they say that we are now going to do the indigenous way of farming. We are no longer going to do the industrial one.
And now that because you as yourself, as a Kenya Peasants League, you've done a lot of case studies and research. We have organizations in Kenya, like Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Institutes. Do you work together with them have you ever approached them so that you can work together on, for example, refining the process of making the organic manures or the organic fertilizers?
We have never, but if they approach us, we can work together and maybe now give them that aspect of the farmers. Yeah. Because we have those who are ideally, maybe that is what they learn. And now they are coming to tell farmers what to do. And again, we have those who are implementing it, who have the knowledge of doing it practically. Because when we are growing out, our great-grandmothers, our grandmothers were using organic way of farming all along. Yeah. And they were producing. They were not using chemicals, manure. They were never using these fertilizers, but they were producing in bulk. And they were feeding our families. But today now, we have changed that system of farming, whereby now we are introducing smart agriculture. They called it smart agriculture and all those things, which don't even work at all. They are just very expensive for farmers, because imagine you buying seeds, it's expensive. You buying fertilizer, it is very expensive. And then now you want to do top dressing and everything else. And imagine me who has my own seeds. Maybe if I just pay somebody, a laborer, to help in the farm, but I own everything, which means I have control of what I'm producing. So if maybe we can go that system, and maybe the government can give the farmers also a chance to prove that the way farmers are addressing the issue of food system can work, then I think maybe we can move forward.
You mentioned you have professors of the farms.
Yes.
The elderly farmers.
Yeah.
And that brings me to ask, do you have programs or mentorship systems where this information can be passed on to younger farmers? And tied on to that as well, what role do young people play in your organization and in small scale farming as well? Because I think it's public knowledge right now that young people are not really most young people are shunning away farming for other let's say, for lack of a better word, illustrious careers. And for a young person, for example, who has an upbringing of metropolitan area or a city or urban areas, when you tell them that farming or maybe even small-scale farming is something that you can pursue, it is not really well taken. So in terms of, first of all, the professors of the farms, the information they have, do they have a way where you pass on that information to like younger farmers so that it sticks within the community and you can also use it to grow as well? And also, is there a way that you are approaching young people to also embrace small-scale farming?
Yeah, because like I mentioned, we have the agroecology schools.
Yeah.
And in these spaces, we are training. So we realize that most of the instructors we have in the schools are our youths.
Oh.
Yeah. So you realize that the elderly, they will come as the resource persons in the space. Now, a resource person, meaning that now they are coming to share that knowledge. So to us, we have the information, because now linking the younger farmers with the older farmers and learning from each other has also helped us in the space. Because personally, like myself, most of the knowledge and the implementation I do in my farm, I learn from the elder farmers, that knowledge. So I know maybe if my vegetables are attacked, this is what I need to do in the farm. So it is the agroecology school now that we are using to ensure that we are disseminating the information both to the younger and the older farmers, all of them, linking them. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Susan. This has been a really eye-opening conversation, because we've touched on so many things that people wouldn't even think that affect food sovereignty or even informal markets. Now, I have one question for you that I want you to answer from all the experiences that you've gathered in this space. What is the one thing that you think if we just changed it, we could alter the future of small-scale farming and informal markets when it comes to food sovereignty?
I think one thing we can change is maybe if we can, the government can address some of the issues emerging, or maybe have a conversation with the farmers in Kenya and maybe understand how they are organizing in terms of their farms. Because bringing that knowledge in the table and the ideas in the table can help us improve our food system right now in Kenya. Supporting the farmers. Because sometimes we support the industrial, but we are forgetting the farmers who now have this knowledge. Like I mentioned, we have a lot of farmers who have the knowledge, a lot of it, who can tell you, are you sick of this? You can take that plant, do it A, B, C, D, F, G, H, and then
whether it's crush it or just have it raw.
So if they can be given an opportunity to also give the ideas, even if the policies are there and the farmers are included, and also to give their voices in these documents, I think we can address the issue of the food system in Kenya.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has been a really interesting conversation. I think time has passed, but we didn't even realize because we were talking about so many things. But I'd just like you to what more do you think that you would say when it comes to the issue of food sovereignty? Now, apart from anything that you can change, but from your perspective or from where you sit, what do you think we need in Kenya in terms of food security? Because we've already established that there is a lot of food in our farms. It just doesn't get to the producers. So we are not food insecure in Kenya. We are very secure in terms of food. Yet there is the notion that there's food insecurity. So what issues do you think we need to talk about more when it comes to informal markets, highlighting stories on small-scale farmers, and finally, affecting the whole ecosystem of food? Because we've also realized that it's not just about food. It touches on families, it touches on money, it touches on even the relationship dynamic between man and woman or husband and wife. So what do you think we need to highlight more on so that we can bring these stories to life?
Okay, maybe one will be to bring friendly policies.
Okay.
Not punitive ones, which are oppressive. That one can help. And then number 2, buy food from the farmers. The government should buy from the farmers, because we are seeing even the government importing food, but we have farmers, the same food our farmers are growing in the country. So if they can buy from the farmers, that one can also help address the issue. And also the issue of a lot of food getting rotten, while the farmers could have gotten a market for it. And then another thing is also supporting the local markets within our country. So if the local markets can be supported, then I think we will not be having maybe farmers going there hoping that I will sell or not.
Yeah.
So that one can address a lot of issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that we've also realized while having this conversation is the fact that there is a very big disconnect between the farmer and the government.
Yeah.
Because most of the things that we have spoken about, we were realizing that they're there. It's just that the government doesn't have that line of communication between them. So that's one thing I think we've realized that we need to really work on. And this is a platform that we can do that because we put these conversations to life. We have them with whether it's a small-scale farmer or even the people who are in these policy-making spaces, whether it's advocacy, for them to just also highlight these issues. Because without food, like you said, even the politicians themselves, without food, you can't survive. People will die, literally.
Yeah.
Let's even say it as it is.
Yeah.
Without food, people will die.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for making time to come. I'll give you your camera again so that you can have your final word in case you have anything to say to the audience. Also tell people about the Kenya Peasants League and how they can get in touch with you so that they can also have this information, because this is really important information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. If you want to learn more, you can visit our social media pages. We are on X-Space at Peasants League. We are on Facebook, Kenyan Peasants League. You can maybe find out on more we are doing. We do advocacy, policy. We are also building food sovereignty. At the same time, we are addressing issues affecting women, young people within the space. So if you want to learn more, you can visit our pages, our website. We also have a website there where you can learn how we are organizing and what we are doing. So another thing I would say is that let us also support the smallholder food producers where we are coming from, because producing food takes a lot of work. Being a farmer myself, I know the process we take to ensure that we are producing. We ideally know that 70% of the food come from the smallholder food producer, meaning 30% come from the large scale farmers. So it means let us support the smallholder food producers. Let us listen to them. Let us also include them in the decision-making spaces to ensure also they are in their ideas, and also share maybe how they would want also the policies to come out that favor the work they do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching Voices of Food Future, episode 3. This episode today has been a very enlightening session where we handled the informal markets, we looked at the seed itself, the indigenous seed, the advantages, the disadvantages, and this is the whole purpose of Voices of Food Future, to just bring these stories to life and highlight how much important it is, because like we have said, without food, we die. So the better we look at the status of our food, or the quality of the food we even consume, the better we have more chances of even living a healthier life. Now, you can interact with us on our platforms. We are Vice Versa Global at YouTube, Vice Versa Global on Instagram, X, and Facebook. You can also interact with our website, viceversaglobal.com. If you can see behind me, we have magazines that we have worked with before. So in case you would like to have one, you can also visit viceversaglobal.com, subscribe to our newsletter, which is where we share all the information that we have. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next episode. My name is Caleb Nyaga.